When I look at the current sandbox scene, in particular what I guess I'll call the blocky sandbox scene, it would seem that everyone is waiting for the next big thing. Terraria and Minecraft have ruled over this genre for over a decade now, with no challenger, to the best of my knowledge, ever coming truly close to taking their crowns. But each game has been out for over 10 years and nothing lasts forever, which begs the question, what's the next big sandbox game? It would seem to me that Hytale could be the potential replacement or rival to Minecraft, but since nobody even knows when Hytale will or if it'll release, I want to focus on a game today that the Terraria community should have its eyes on, and that's Core Keeper. I slept on this one for a while, but I finally decided to start a run in Core Keeper while always having in the back of my mind, could this be the next big sandbox game? And this is the beginning of my journey to find out. Now there's two things I should clarify right from the start. For one, I'm not going to be analyzing whether Core Keeper will overtake or replace Terraria, but only whether Core Keeper will be able to obtain the same amount of popularity. And secondly, the game is still in early access. They actually quite recently announced the launch of 1.0 in 2024, but no date, month, or season has been given, but for all I know, that'll change before this video even comes out. This does mean there will be aspects of the game that may change between the time I'm playing it and when it releases, but considering the timeline, it's unlikely there will be major changes to the 1.0 release. With all that said, if you like playing these games totally blind like I do, here's a spoiler warning as we get into the game. Although I guess we're not quite in the game itself, as first I want to mention the game settings. For world difficulties, you can choose from standard, hard, creative, or casual. The hard difficulty mentions greater rewards, but I'm not sure if that means new items or weapons or just more of the stuff that usually drops. You can also select the save icon, which would be nice for sorting a bunch of worlds if you had them. I choose standard because it's the intended difficulty, and that brings me to the characters because there are difficulty options there, but only two. There are standard or hardcore, with hardcore obviously meaning you can only die once. I actually found these options quite interesting though, as there is no soft core or easy option. When you die in Core Keeper, you lose all your loot except what is in your hotbar, which I think is quite nice. You do suffer consequences, but are not crippled or forced to grind out extra gear. But I'm shocked there is no option to simply keep everything, and thus suffer no consequences. They do offer an easy difficulty for the world, so I imagine they'd add an easy mode for characters as well in the future. When you load up the world for the first time, you play this short, skippable story, and you're brought into the world in quite a flashy fashion, with nothing but a pickaxe and some rations. I'm surrounded by roots, so obviously it's time to start breaking them, and this gives you an early supply of wood, which you can craft into torches, or other supplies. I also find the crafting menu, or inventory, quite hilarious because in Minecraft it's E, in Terraria it's escape, and in Core Keeper it's tab. Why they all had to choose different keys is beyond me. Now the thing about games like this is that there isn't exactly a whole lot of direction given. What you're presented with here is a dark room surrounded by dirt, so the only option is to start breaking it. When I did this, I was quickly rewarded with this little shrine that had some golden thing on a pedestal. Turns out it's some fruit called a golden heartberry. Considering how it's golden, I assume it must be valuable or rare, and so it's nice finding something like this so early in the game. Giving players something to immediately find exciting is often quite important for games like this. Perhaps mining in a different direction would have led me to something less exciting, but I suppose we'll see. I put down a crafting bench and was able to make full wooden armor, which is quite nice. I'm also quick to realize that I'm going to need a lot of space, so I set up my base in such a way to allow for easy growth in the future. For now, the crafting stations are on the bottom left, while the garden is on the bottom right. I'm not a fan of farming in games, but Core Keeper makes it pretty quick. It's still a chore, but not one you have to linger on or even one that's necessary, though you'll have a tough time if you don't do this. I explore a little bit to the left when I hear this pounding that's not coming from me. A little further down and there's a massive slime. This is the first boss of the game and I just started, so I'm not ready to take it on. But I do love how the boss just exists in the world. He's not something that is summoned, but is something that is found, which I think creates a certain awe factor and is generally just more interesting. It's also good how it's so close to spawn, making him easy to find and allowing the new player to realize quite quickly that there is a boss. It gives the player an immediate goal. I crafted an anvil with the copper I had collected and made a bow. One thing about Core Keeper is that there are workbenches and anvils for every ore variance, well, at least in the part that I've played this far, with one certain exception. I explore a little further, but my pickaxe broke. See, tools, armor, and weapons all have durability in this game, but thankfully they don't break outright when they run out. Rather, you just can't use them anymore until they are repaired, and I'll touch upon repair later. For now, I learned I could make a backpack that increases my storage capacity. I can walk past slimes, and if I don't attack them, then they won't attack me, and I earn my first skill point. For doing anything in Core Keeper, you gather experience for certain abilities. You get points for running, mining, farming, using ranged or melee weapons, killing enemies, crafting. Literally any move you make gives you experience one way or another. These points can be spent on skill trees. You're never locked out of a path in a skill tree, but you do have to unlock certain parts by spending a certain amount of points in each of the above sections. These skills are basically just quality of life upgrades and not really game-changing, but it's good to know the game actively relieves you of the burden of grinding. The more you grind. Back at the workbench, I'm going to make the repair station to fix my pickaxe and learned that there's an arrow that toggles between the wooden and copper workbenches. I have the copper one, but this arrow means I can toggle to what the wooden one makes, so I won't have to have every workbench variant scattered about the base. That's nice, but at the same time, I wish it was all organized into one crafting menu rather than scrolling through crafting stations to the one you want. I made the repair station, but I need scrap parts or something before I can fix my pickaxe, so it's still broken. To be clear, I can still break blocks or mine without a pickaxe, but only weak walls and more slowly. While I searched for these parts, I found what I guess I'll call a meadow, and it's beautiful. While there, I punch a cow, presuming it was an enemy. It didn't go on the attack, so I killed it, thinking that maybe it was confused. Once I collected the steak it dropped, I realized I was the one who had been confused, and it was actually just a passive mob. Whoops. I did get some scrap parts though, and that let me fix my pickaxe and place some of the things that I'd collected in the meadow in my base, and it really did not take long before I started decorating, which is a good sign for Core Keeper. I'm not even half an hour in, and have found a special structure, a boss, a pretty meadow, started a farm, and began decorating. That's quite a lot. Speaking of the garden though, I noticed I could craft a watering can and had a light bulb moment where I realized I needed to actually water the plants to get them to grow. At this point, I've hardly left the vicinity of my home, so I thought it was time to mine somewhere. In Core Keeper, you pretty much have to mine to get anywhere you want to go. There are open caves, but there's a lot of mining. Thankfully, most of the time it doesn't actually take that long to find an opening. After some mining, I come to this cliff and bridge over it and find myself in the Forgotten Ruins. A short distance away are some gremlins, or whatever they're called, and I decide to provoke them, resulting in my first death. It was easy enough to get my loot back, and I paused for a second to ponder what's the deal with this door. There's treasure inside, and the lock to this thing looks a little funky, so maybe I have to find a special key somewhere. I honestly had no idea what to do and continued playing, waiting to find something, but I actually missed the thing that would have let me open the door. I only realized that I had missed it after watching the 1.0 trailer. See, there's music in Core Keeper, and I need to play a certain song or something to open this door, which is pretty cool for creativity, but I also would never have put 2 and 2 together. Back at home, there's pet stuff, and that has me really excited. The one and only thing I like about Minecraft over Terraria is your ability to keep animals, and these items would seem to suggest I can do that in Core Keeper as well, and that just makes me so very happy. I wasn't sure what pets I could gather though. Then, when I went into another meadow and saw a passive creature, I had a light bulb moment, and thought that maybe I shouldn't kill them so I can try to add them to the farm later. But I can't right now, and I explored a little to the right where I think I should mention food. There is a food or hunger bar in Core Keeper, and you gotta keep an eye on it. Early game food is really quite obnoxious, honestly. It's not necessarily that it's even hard to get food either, just that the food available was more focused on healing and buffs and not hunger. There is a bread that restores hunger and a lot of it, but it's not easily obtained early game. I really wish there was something like grain that you could grow for quick and dirty food that's only focused on hunger. The only option at the moment are shrooms, which do a little bit of both, and you can find them frequently enough to satiate your appetite. There's exploding boxes I would randomly find, which are great for making quick tunnels, and I learned that you could interact with the animals and name them. I also discovered I had picked up an egg at some points and found some armor. I harvested my first crop, figured out how to make glass. You apply heat to sand, guys, and then made an incubator that should be able to hatch the egg I found. And so far, Core Keeper has made me feel quite nostalgic. In many ways, it's like I'm playing Terraria for the first time all over again. And that feeling, that's what the new big sandbox needs to accomplish. It needs to reach into the hearts of those who love Terraria or Minecraft and make them feel that same love. It's been a wonderful first experience, and I've already come to the conclusion that Core Keeper Feels like a fusion of Terraria, Minecraft, and Stardew Valley. But this is just me getting started. Will it continue? Well, I got this rare drop that says it'll summon a boss, but before I can use it, I have to beat the boss sitting on the summoning circle I need to use this on. I really should start gearing up and get some of the upgrades, which means I need tin, and tin was hard to find. After some searching, I found that tin was more commonly found in the clay caves. It can be found elsewhere as well, but ores do seem to have biomes that they're most commonly found in. It's also quite nice that Core Keeper gives a little glow effect to the surrounding ore, so you're not left mining constantly in the dark hoping you find something. There seems to have been a focus on removing a lot of grinding in this game, and I for one quite appreciate it. It also doesn't remove so much grinding that you can ignore most of its mechanics though. It's been walking a thin line thus far, and quite well I must say. At last I get the tin and replace my copper anvil with a tin one and upgrade my backpack, further increasing my storage. I was also able to make a leash, and a cow had wandered into my home, and sure enough the leash works on him. You have no idea how happy this made me, but I was a little distracted from my joy because the cow was eating my garden. I made an open area, placed a fence around him, and named him, and now I have a pet cow. I love him. I add a feeding tray that is supposed to be filled with seed, it says, but I can't for the life of me figure out how to make seed, and I still have no idea. Guess I'll need a few backup pets in case the first one starves. And I just love this. I love the animals. They're all so cute. And if you love animals too, please be sure to subscribe. I'm a Terraria channel, but maybe we'll be doing some more Core Keeper. So if you enjoy the content, then be sure to subscribe. It really helps the channel a lot. Now there is quite a bit of walking in this game, but thankfully, very early in the game, you can make minecart tracks to make the journey that much easier. So I place some rails, mine more tin, and then realize the egg I put in the incubator has a little thunder symbol, and there's an electronics table, so I suppose maybe it needs power. I craft a few things and have officially left the Stone Age. No more do I have ape brain, which means I should be smart enough to fight the giant slime, Glurch the abominous mass. The fight is so very simple with the slime, only having one attack, and yet it was still quite satisfying. It felt as though he was always just one small mistake away from crushing me, and the many slimes in the area also made it difficult since if I hit one of them, then I'd have to fight them as well. Worse yet, the floor is covered in slime, which decreases my movement speed. In second phase, he starts moving faster, and after a carefully fought battle, I come out on top. Some miner guy appears from the ground, and there's a number of good things from the chest. The two that I'll mention is a feather that gives me a dash ability and a new egg. Well, I guess I should also mention this candy that gives XP to my pet, so I naturally brought it to the cow I had captured. But the game told me I had no pets, so I guess these guys don't count. Perhaps, I wondered, the eggs will hatch and give me a pet. Now, one interesting thing about Core Keeper is the housing situation. In Terraria, you make shoe boxes or else mobs will kill you, and in Minecraft, you do the same. But in Core Keeper, for whatever reason, I never feel threatened by the idea of leaving the tunnels I've dug wide open for any old enemy or person to walk through. I just don't feel threatened or at risk of losing anything. I did end up adding gates after a slime broke in, but I just thought that it was something noteworthy, that the home feels much more safe. I've also been hanging on to this key a gremlin dropped for the longest time, and while mining, a chest appears from out of a wall I broke, and sure enough, the key opens it. Inside is a hammer that is the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. I can now shred blocks and will never let this thing go. I got a funny mask from the goblins that does fire damage, but the reason I was killing these guys is because I want to get the pill bug that's just been minding its own business, and I drag him all the way home. After mining a bit deeper, I come to this slimy path, and this is the coolest thing in the game, I think, because this slime path is slimy for a reason. There's a massive creature that's burrowing around spawn in a massive circle, and he passes by me, making me wonder, can I kill it? There's a mysterious house I find, and while I'm mining, the ground begins to shake and these large rocks fall from above me. But wait, I'm underground? Is this all one big cave? Did these rocks fall from the surface? Somehow, this event, more than anything else, made me curious about the game's lore and what is even happening. I don't know why this one event, nothing else, just this event made me curious about the lore, and that's why it's noteworthy. Back at home, the egg is done, and I get this cute little bird. He doesn't actually do anything, but does give me a passive buff or two. Other than that, he's just cute. I also made a house because one of the things the slime drop mentioned needing a house, and I have no idea how to make suitable housing, so I kind of just made something in the hopes of it working. This is also the point when the number of crafting stations started to get overwhelming. It's nice that the anvil and workbench can be toggled, but even so, there are just so many crafting stations, and sometimes to get what you want, you have to make one station that can then make another station, and this made it hard from time to time to get what I was looking for. I really wish you could place all of these close together and get all the craftable items in a single menu. It just gets to be a bit much at times. I decorated my farm, which is something I never do. It's a little sad that I had to destroy the land in the lovely meadow just to move it to my farm, but it's fine. Now my home is pretty. I explored a little bit until my slime egg was finished, and the slime summon is quite nice, as it does good damage. He also gives some passive buffs, and it's just overall better than the parrot in my opinion. So I guess I don't know if it's actually a parrot. Now that I have an orange slime pet, I was reminded of the summon I had found earlier. I went to the summoning circle thinking I'd summoned the abominous mass again, but instead, King Slime had awoken. Oh yeah, forgot Terraria and Core Keeper did a little crossover, and let me just say, King Slime was a whole lot more dangerous and powerful than I thought he'd be. Probably one of the hardest or perhaps best balanced King Slime fights I've ever had. After finishing him off, I explored the left side of the world and discovered I can actually mine and pick up the locked chests, which is so very convenient. I don't know if I can mark spots on the map at all, so it's nice I don't have to hope I remember where these things are, and I can just pick them up and leave them at home. A lot of these chests were found down south though, because I had to mine a bunch of iron ore, and the tools and equipment that can be made from the stuff are so very nice. One of the things I could make was a crafting station that could make keys, and since I've only ever found one key but like 10 chests, I'm grateful I can craft them instead of relying on RNG. While I was searching for iron, I did find a flintlock pistol, so now I'm an all-American boy, and a broken handle that's just as good as the iron sword, while also having me intrigued as to whether I can fix this broken handle at some point. Speaking of weapons, the combat in this game is actually pretty fun. Perhaps it's not the most challenging thing ever, but there is a harder difficulty, if that's your speed, and even if it's not particularly hard, it's not easy either. You do have to be careful, and there's plenty of times I'd go out of my way to not start a fight. If anything, the powerful enemies aren't the problem, just the sheer number of them that are grouped together. Anyways, I remembered I got some item from the mass, and one of the statues that spawn looks an awful lot like that boss. After clicking on it, there was a slot that looked a lot like the item that had dropped, and once I placed it in there, the statue began to glow, and there was 3 items I could craft. While I was home, I crafted full iron, and I also made some drills that can be used to mine these big chunks of ore you'll find lying around. Not quite sure how to make it all work, but the drills do their job well enough. At this point, I was pretty sure there wasn't a whole lot more I could do to increase my power, so I went to the slime path to fight the big worm thing digging around here. I shot at it, but the bug kept on moving and I couldn't catch up to it. Guess I'll get my food that increases movement speed and try that again. He almost runs past me, but it would seem that after a certain amount of damage, Gorm the Devourer will veer off his course and attack, but he didn't exactly attack. He kind of just went in smaller circles around me. I never actually felt as though I were under attack in any way, and now he's dead. I like this guy for the awe or even panic he can inspire in you when you first encounter him, but the fight was a little underwhelming. When I put his trinket in the statue, I could make new armor, and I crafted this thing with the slime statue that showed me the location of the 3rd boss depicted in these statues. This is the Hive Mother, and she's definitely the most involved battle of them all. And the battle was a good time, but I'll let you discover more about it on your own. I put in the statue's thingy, and this activates the central stone. It speaks a little and says that there's a wall that's been lifted, and that marks the end of the journey for now. I'm going to continue, but I don't want this video to become longer than it already is, and I want to go into depth about what this game has to offer. Thus far, I have quite enjoyed my time with Core Keeper. It's definitely the kind of game that a Terraria lover would also enjoy. But what about the question of, will it one day become its equal, or even become a leader in a new generation of blocky sandboxes? Well, I'm not quite sure, but honestly, thus far I fear it's a bit too directed, I guess. I'm unsure how different it would actually be between runs, and although there are difficulty options, what else is there to mix up the formula? There aren't really different classes to play, and the biomes may shift where they are, but not by much if I'm right. You can collect animals, there's farming, there's fishing, there's music, and a certain amount of building. In all, there's plenty of options and toys to mess with. It's great, I'm just not sure about its staying power. But in the end, that might come down to its updates. Terraria and Minecraft has stayed relevant thanks in part by them updating. In many ways, Core Keeper and Terraria in particular are similar, and I'm sure I'd have similar thoughts about Terraria if I were to play its 1.0 version once again. I'm really excited for the rest that Core Keeper has in store, and it could very well change my mind, but I'll get to that in the next video, assuming you guys like this one enough for me to make another video about it. So like and comment on this video if you enjoyed it and would like to see more Core Keeper content. If things go well, I might make more, even after this series, though frankly, Core Keeper videos haven't exactly done really well on YouTube, it would seem. And before finishing, I want to mention one more important detail about Core Keeper and its potential longevity. From all the trailers I've seen, it would seem that multiplayer is a major focus of the game. I did play a much earlier version of the game with some friends before, and it was definitely a different experience. It's nice doing single player so I can actually do all the things rather than coming upon locations that have already been looted or never engaging with some of the mechanics like farming or fishing or the electronics because somebody else is taking care of it. But multiplayer also greatly helps with the game's popularity since everybody loves the option to play with friends. Figured I should mention that as well since I'm doing a single player run. If you haven't given Core Keeper a chance, I'd definitely recommend it. And if you want it to succeed as a game, be sure to support those creators who make content on it. The Core Keeper official channel hardly has 5,000 subscribers, and its trailers receive similar views. No game is defined by its YouTube presence because people only watch videos on certain games if they enjoy that game, and perhaps someday Core Keeper will become a new generation's blocky sandbox. But in the end, only time will tell. For now, I just hope you'll join me next time as I explore this game and its potential to be the next big thing.